So for Facebook Live, do they see the sidebar with us in the cameras or?
So yeah, welcome to the challenge, Enlisted2Entrepreneur Challenge 2201 Day 2 mission. We're here just starting up with Mark. And Mark's asking, if you join on Facebook Live, do you see who is on Zoom and do you see the Zoom chat? No, we don't. That's why I think it's good if people can join us through Zoom and we can actually have some interaction. We can have people chat by text, or we can, ask questions and, talk like we're talking now. So we had some great Q&A yesterday for probably 20-25 minutes after we finished this session. But you know what? Sometimes Zoom is not an option. So Facebook Live is second best because you can still have a chat in the Facebook comments. And the only thing you can't do there is come on stage. And of course, there's replays for those who are unable to join, whatever people are working, shift work, busy, maybe they're on holidays, whatever. Life happens, I understand. Last year, I ran this during the day at 1300 each day, and definitely turnout wasn't as strong as the evening timing. So remembering my DLs as a reservist, we always were not happy with the way the reg force scheduled their DL sessions during the day. So I think, and we have more people joining. Bill, Alan, Michael, how are you guys? Good to see you back.
Doing pretty good, Greg. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so we have a few minutes still till the official start time. We're streaming live on Facebook, and we've got already one person joining us there, and we have a bunch of us here in Zoom, and more will come probably in about 5 minutes. But meanwhile, just I wanted to ask, what were your impressions from yesterday? Any afterthoughts, or maybe like some ideas that came to mind today, maybe when you were doing your homework. So, I have a few minutes to kind of chat about that.
I liked it. I never really knew what to expect. I was happy with the content. Had some great speakers. It was worth the time, my personal opinion.
Thank you. We're gonna make sure it is even more worth your time throughout the rest of the week as we get kind of like more hands-on. Yesterday was really just kind of like cushioning the ground, before you go into battle. Just giving the lay of the land from my point of view and Dave's point of view. Those are just two vantage points, by the way. There's obviously other people here who already have businesses, like Bill I think is doing okay from what I gather. So we have all kinds of folks, anywhere from still in and about to release and just like looking at different coasts, all the way to been out for many years and looking to give back because they've had some success. So I like that. Any other thoughts or impressions or anything, feedback, good points, bad points?
Not for me. I'm in a all too familiar situation for a lot of people. I'm literally in the process of going through a 3B release and trying to figure out what the hell to do with my life after that. So I went out and spent my own money to take my real estate course before realizing what funding I get through the transition center and VA, and just trying to make the most of it.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. A lot of people don't know about the benefits through the VA. I had a call with them earlier this year. Believe it or not, they actually notice what I'm doing here. And we did a live with Dave 2 weeks ago in the group saying how I think Canadian government is a little bit more cautious when it comes to these grassroots initiatives. They can't endorse a lot of these private things that are happening. So they kind of give you a pat on the back, but that's about all the support you get at this point. And I guess, eventually when you grow big enough, then they can actually endorse you and support you in a bigger way. But for now, I mean, I just got a thank you from VAC, and apparently, all the way to the Vice CDS. I think somebody noticed, so I don't know.
Awesome.
But yeah, that's a good point. Knowing about the benefits available, we're going to talk a little bit about it on Thursday with the funding and stuff like that. Some of the grants that are available through some of the supporting organizations, and I'm sure there's more that we don't know about. That's the problem. Like in the United States, for example, there's over 300 different organizations that are trying to help veterans, and a lot of them don't accomplish much because like everyone's so silent and they don't like talk to each other. So a lot of people don't know what is available simply because there's so much, and they're like, talking about putting yourself out there, talking about self-promotion, a point brought up yesterday. That's a very important point. Question: are we going to touch on incorporation or not? And income will affect your RBDC. Yeah, I guess that is an important point. I started my business before I had any benefits. Obviously, I just it was just a tax issue of like whether or not you increase your personal income or you keep it on the corporation. But obviously, there's another point for the benefits that you may or may not get. And we have more people joining. I think the autoresponder is going to drop the we are starting now email as we speak. So we're going to have an influx of.
Yeah, it was already sent out. But if I could just enter in here about Alan Stort's question. He is correct, 20,000 on IRB or deck, but my suggestion, and it'll be well worth the money that you will pay, is if you're going to start a business and you are planning on generating over $20,000 in take-home revenue, get yourself an accountant, and don't take the cheapest accountant. Get yourself an accountant, and they will teach you how to hide the money.
Thank you. I don't know if hide the money is the appropriate word. I think the tax mitigation is the appropriate terminology here. I had an accounting minor in school, so I remember that much. But actually, that was one point that in the pre-training from Corporal for Life from Nicholas there, he mentioned you got to learn how to do your own bookkeeping. That's something I kind of disagree with. I think you need to understand the bookkeeping, but you don't want to be doing your own books, like at least. That's one of the things that I would personally offload as soon as possible, even though I did mine for probably 8 years because I have the training, but it doesn't mean I should be doing it. Anyways, got Corey joining today. He's going to be a keynote speaker, so good to have him on the mission day, because I believe his brand, his company has a very very deep mission statement that I recently found out about just when I saw them at a trade show. That's kind of when we met in person. And there's some good tax strategy brainstorming going on in the chat. Okay, it's 7:03. I think we're going to get the ball rolling slowly as some of the stragglers roll in. So thank you, everyone. Just make sure you keep yourself muted if you are if you have some background noise, and if you do want to speak up, just like drop something in the chat or raise a hand and I'll bring you up. We're gonna have a Q&A at the end, just like yesterday. And let's go. can see how familiar I am with Google Slides. Okay. Yeah, I'm having a brain fart here, how to start a slideshow, but anyways, we'll just go on. So yeah, first of all, I wanted to thank everyone for yesterday. We had a great turnout, and we had some great discussion in the chat. We had some amazing Q&A, and we have some great comments. So, keep showing up. Make sure you don't miss anything. Invite your buddies. Make sure you tell them that this is real, that this is something that you like, and keep coming. Yeah, I'm just letting a few more people in. There we go. New slideshow. Yeah, so enough said about yesterday. It was awesome. You guys are great, and really the comments that I got really warmed my heart. Once again, the reason why I decided to do this is, I decided this 5 years ago in 2018, and it was just like a innate feeling that I had about trying to give back and lift others up. And transition is still a problem. I'm still witnessing it as a common theme in some of the other organizations that I'm a member of, like Trouble Victor and whatnot. And I just enjoy working with like-minded people. Like, I love working with entrepreneurs, and every time I meet a veteran entrepreneur, it's like 10x the factor of just how good it is to work with them. So what I wanted to cover today is talk a little bit about what sometimes known as the hustle porn. I don't know if you follow Gary Vee or not, but I think he coined the term, and really spend a lot of time talking about the mission and the purpose, and then kind of get a little bit more tactical about what it actually means for the business. And when I was in business school, we did the whole mission and vision exercises, and being 21 years old, you don't really understand what that means. And I think to this date, a lot of these big corporations, I think, it's just a statement that they write somewhere on a business card and on the stationery and put it away. And if you stop 5 people in the hallway, they will not be able to explain what that is. But I think as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, it's very important. And also, coming from the military background, I think we all understand what the mission really is. So about the hustle, if you were here yesterday, you probably heard my story a little bit. As I was working full time, and I was serving in the military, and I was studying for some certifications to get ahead, and I just wanted some additional income. So I was looking for different side hustles, and I was looking at who's doing what. Like, somebody is buying homes and fixing them up and flipping them or renting them out, and then somebody was like selling some shit on eBay, and then somebody was doing something else. And there was all of these different things that people were doing to make money. And I was like, well, what should I do? And I kind of did what I felt closer to me, because I used to build websites as a teen, so I had some skills, and I just had to learn a little bit more to put 2 and 2 together and start that business. But you know what, it was still very much driven by the need to make money, right? So typically, as a famous consultant, Jay Abraham, says, 90% of entrepreneurs are tactical and not strategic. So typically, it looks something like this. you see others making money doing something like they do crypto or NFT or couch flipping or I don't know, whatever, and print on demand apparel. They do affiliate marketing, like you name it, there's a ton of these things. And you're like, well, I want the same. And you basically go and try to copy them all. And that's what I did. I actually like copied what other people were doing and actually had some short-term success. Obviously, it took me a while to figure it out, but I kind of figured it out. But still, you're just copying without any added value. Eventually, you will plateau or even fail. And because you're just motivated by money, and you eventually going to either quit or repeat the cycle. And I was stuck in that pattern over and over and over again for 10 years. And I've had some good runs, and I've made some financial gain from it. But at the end of the day, like I wasn't really fulfilled, and also it didn't feel like I was doing something meaningful, to be honest. Can you make money hustling? Yeah, you can. I'm living proof of that. And I'm not the hardest hustler there is, but it can work. You can see somebody doing something that makes money, you can copy it, you can carve yourself a little niche, a little piece of that pie, and you can make a little bit of money or even a lot of money, right? But is this the best way for you? It depends on what you really want, in my opinion, in my experience. So for example, you want me to just like forego this whole presentation and just show you a really quick way how to make $30 a day without doing much? Like, who wants that? Like you probably don't, even though like I can show it to you in probably 20 minutes. And because it's a tactic, right? Like, so a lot of people are looking for tactics, and tactics tend to die. They tend to go away while the fundamentals are always there to stay. That's why I wanted to schedule these 5 days focused mostly on the fundamentals and not so much in tactics, because that's something that can change tomorrow. Like I was giving a presentation in Berlin a month ago. I was talking about Google ads and YouTube ads, and literally 2 days before I went on stage, Google published an article saying we're going to change the way YouTube targets certain keywords. We're going to take away keyword targeting from YouTube, so you can no longer have YouTube ads targeting keywords. I'm like, well, there goes my half of my presentation. Well, not half, but like a good portion of it. So that's what I mean by tactics. Not being there all the time, but the fundamentals will stay. And another thing, why you need a mission. So I don't know if you heard the name Viktor Frankl. So this was a European writer. He was sent to the Nazi concentration camps for trying to save Jews, and he spent I think 5 or 6 years, and he survived. So he's a Holocaust survivor, and that's one of his quotes. It's like, when a man cannot find meaning, he numbs himself with pleasure. And you know what? Like, if there's any sort of vice, like maybe you're hard on the bottle or whatever, like there could be reasons for that, but oftentimes it's all because you're bored. It's because you like don't have a mission, whether because you Mike, there you go, he's showing the book. Awesome. Yeah, so sometimes like you find a little bit of quote unquote success, you become comfortable, and then you forget the mission. Or if you never had the mission to begin with, like you're gonna just do dumb shit and like waste yourself away. And that's the trap that I don't want you to fall into, because I almost got caught into that myself. I'm only mostly speaking from my own experience, by the way. Like, so if you remember to the up order format, well, the 5 W's of the mission, it's who, what, where, when, and why. I think why should be first in that order. And there's a book, like I'm going to be bringing up a lot of books throughout this week that I like to read, or, if you don't like to read, you can listen. This is a book called Start With Why. And I think you need to start with why, understand why you're starting the business, why you want to be an entrepreneur. Because when times get hard, the why will keep you going. It's not the money in the bank. It's not the, latest tactic or Google ads or whatever. Like, it's going to be your why that's going to keep you going. Like, also having a strong why will attract better people to your team, because I found the hard way that putting more money in Greg's bank account is not a very strong why for my team, right? They were motivated by putting, money in their bank account, but it wasn't a strong enough why to keep them going. Whereas like if you go to NASA and you see all of these like scientists working on sending people into space, or like Elon Musk wants to go to Mars, like he doesn't care, like that's his why. And they don't care how much money they make. It's completely different level. And also it's in the book, but if your customers understand why you're doing what you're doing, they will buy more. They will really support you. So that's why I think in the mission statement, for our purposes, we want to start with why. And I highly recommend that book. And we're going to do a little bit of homework based on that. Speaking of homework, we do have a winner by virtue of being the only person completing it. So Desi, congratulations. You win a prize. I think you're going to get the latest collection from Mad Hatter Apparel. So DM me after we're done, and I'm going to arrange a price pack for you, which probably just need your shipping address and your clothing preferences, and we'll sort it out. But anyway, so if you were to do yesterday's homework, or if you haven't had a chance to, I highly recommend you do it. Essentially, like it's some of the questions, they will guide you towards this. So this is a Japanese word called ikigai. It's just a fancy Venn diagram, really. So it's basically finding the intersection of like what you're good at, what you like, and what people need, and what you can get paid for, because it doesn't always overlap. So if you are able to find that, that's kind of what you should be working on. So very different from hustling, looking at opportunities like someone's flipping houses, or like I'm making a quick buck on eBay. Like it's a very different approach, and I kind of did it backwards. So I think if you were to start now, or maybe if you're considering the overall path for your business, like this is a good exercise to do. Let's just check in the chat real quick. Someone recommends a book. Corey says Traction. I think it's the same authors who wrote Rocket Fuel, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think they are. So I'm just reading. I actually just finished reading Rocket Fuel. So Traction is also probably a good book. So anyways, quick question, and if you know the answer, just type it in the chat or pipe up. Like, what's the number of one thing if you need to sell the most amount of hamburgers in 1 hour? Like, if I give you a task to sell the most amount of hamburgers in 1 hour, what do you want to have? What is the one thing? You can only have one. What is it? Is it the best recipe? Is it the best customer service? Is it the fanciest packaging? Is it the best design logo? Is it the best tax accountant? What is it? Anybody know the answer? Let's see. There's some activity in the chat. Customer service, best location, automation, customer service, recipe, reputation. All good guesses, but if you know this story, and every marketer knows this. Baba, this is what you need. You need a starving crowd, and some people will appreciate the photo of Alex Ramosi. But anyways, so yeah, like if you don't have a starving crowd, like everything else that we just mentioned, the recipe, customer service is either not relevant or secondary, right? Because if you position yourself in front of the football stadium after the game is done, you're guaranteed you're going to sell out. Yeah, demand. So that's probably the closest one. So anyways, like, and how do you get a starving crowd? Is by knowing your who, right? So first you have your why, now you look at who is that you want to serve. And business, the definition of business is sometimes cited as simply solving problems for other people. And we mentioned that yesterday about the definition of entrepreneurship. It's taking other people's problems and making them yours to solve. Elon Musk, famous quote, you get paid in direct proportion to the difficulty of problems you solve. Even in the military, you're private, you're solving, very basic problems. You're an MWO, your level of problems you solve is 100x higher, and you unfortunately don't get paid 100x more, but you get the deal. So that's another important question is, who are you going to solve problems for? A lot of people start, again, and I did, with the product, and then they figure out like, okay, like I have this thing, who am I going to sell it to? And it's a backward way of doing it, because we're going to talk about it tomorrow, but the number one reason why most startups fail is because nobody wants to buy their shit, or they make stuff that nobody wants. So this way, you have your why that's going to keep you going. You have a strong mission, and now you have your who, and you define it using the red ocean versus blue ocean theory, which is a fancy name of basically being really specific of the person that you want to serve. Like, here's an example I just pulled from the internet. Like, instead of saying I want to start a couples travel blog, it's super broad. Like, you know, what kind of couple? Do they have kids? Do they not have kids? Are they just married, or are they like on their 25th year of marriage? So the more specific it is, the more specific your relation to them will be, and you're going to have a better chance of connecting with them, right? So like I said, once you know who is that you serve, you're going to know exactly what kind of problems they have, either by knowing or by asking, because now you can actually speak the language. And then if you really can address their problems, and you can become the number one go-to person in that niche. And if it's, not all couples in the world, but like it's a pretty specific niche, it's very easy to become the number one person in that niche because it's not big. Caveat: make sure the TAM, total addressable market, is still meaningful enough. So it has to be specific, but not so tiny that there's like 3 people in the world who actually are in that audience. So, underwater basket weaving is probably not the greatest niche for you. But another bonus of knowing your who is like, you won't have to sell, because they will feel like, what you have is for them. And, you have empathy and you understand them, you feel what they felt. And then you found a solution that solves that problem. Like, a lot of good things come out of knowing your who very well. If a lot of people get confused on your who, and then most times it's either someone you know or it's you. And most often it's going to be you 5 years ago. So if you, again, go back to Corporal for Life origin story, it's just 2 guys several years after they got out, reminiscing on how come there's no good t-shirts for retired Canadian military, and they decided to do something about it, and they started the apparel brand. Simple example, but that's what most people do. I mean, sometimes you pick somebody else as your mission, like maybe you feel really strongly about underprivileged orphan children or something like that. I don't know, but like, another reason why you want to start with why and who first is just like in the military, like it's a lot easier to rally your team behind a meaningful mission and purpose, and then knowing, who is going to directly benefit from what you do. And once again, it's a lot easier to motivate your team by saying we're going to help these people, solve that problem or achieve that result, than like, we're going to make 10% more this quarter because, we're going to sell more shit. And then, like I said, most people start with what is like, I have this widget, I have this thing, and now I'm going to have to figure out how to move it. And that, you can make it work. And I made it work as a marketer. Oftentimes people come to me and they're like, I have this thing, I need to move it. And I try to figure out how to do it. But the first question I would ask is, who is this for? And not always people know it. The good thing is your audience will often tell you what they need the most, what kind of problems they face, even if you ask them. And you want to offer something that people want to buy. So it's very, like, I mean, it is possible to develop a completely new thing that nobody ever heard of and nobody knows that it exists. And now it's, it's a new thing, like iPad was kind of a new thing, but they did a lot of things right bringing it to market. But it's a lot easier to sell something that people want to buy, that they're already searching for on Google, that they're already reading reviews on blogs, and they're watching, YouTube videos on like the best, window treatment, for example. Solves a specific problem. And another thing is vitamins versus Tylenol. People will pay a lot more for a cure than for prevention. So that's another consideration. And the more specific it is, the more they feel like it's for them, and therefore it's worth more to them. Rather than this is everything for everybody. Like, when people start out, oftentimes like you ask them like, who's your best client? And they're like, well, it's PCC. What does it mean? It's somebody with a pulse and a credit card. And when when you begin, like maybe that's how I often felt when I was just starting out, that I don't care who you are, just like you're willing to pay me, I'm willing to work. But if you specialize and you are able to be very specific for a very specific group of people, so in their very specific problems, you're going to be paid a lot more. Another thing about what is we have this word in the marketing industry called offers. Offers really, they're just a combination of factors of how to make something that people feel stupid for saying no to. Like, if I was selling a Ferrari, a genuine Ferrari with 10,000 kilometers on it for $10,000, and there's no catch, and it's like not a kit car but a real Ferrari, I'm sure like you're gonna go and find $10,000 to get that genuine Ferrari for me for that price. And that's just an example, just based on price. In my experience, a great offer even with poor marketing will always outsell something that is a poor offer and has great marketing. Like, I, as a marketing agency, cannot turn your turd into a pot of gold. I can maybe improve the results a little bit, but at the end of the day, like, you have to produce something that works and something that solves problems for people. And then finally, we got where and when. So make sure you set smart goals for yourself, like when you're going to accomplish something. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. I think we're okay with that as military members with goal setting, but sometimes we just kind of, especially in business, you fly by the seat of the pants, and I've done this before, and I think goal setting is important. So the big thing is, once you make a plan, you execute. And obviously, we have a lot of comments. This is great info, so great. But if you don't do anything with that information, it's basically just like watching Netflix or, reading a book. You have to do something with it. And I think it's a good segue for Corey to step in and talk about his company mission. And we covered the 5 W's of a mission statement. And Corey, are you okay to jump in and talk about Mad Hatter and your mission?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Greg. And for everyone that's on the call, I'm not sure if you got the introduction yesterday, but I'll give a quick brief about who I am and what I do. So
I'm going to make you host.
Okay.
So you can go and there you go.
Okay. I'm actually operating from my phone, so looks like we got somebody jumping in the room here. So I'm Lieutenant Corey Hatt. I'm the founder of Mad Hatter Industries, which is for those that don't know what Mad Hatter Industries is, I explain it as a veteran-owned apparel company with a focus and passion for mental health initiatives. So how do we do that? Essentially, with our apparel and the lifestyle that we exhibit through our online media, we try to motivate and help inspire others to do things they love. Our motto is find your passion, live your adventure. And for me, it's more of a lifestyle than it really is a business per se. I didn't get into it to make a lot of money. I did it to help people, specifically those dealing with suicidal thoughts, depressive, manic episodes after losing a few friends to suicide. That's essentially where we started this mission to help others. And I went through a few things myself. I originally started in the Canadian Forces as a vehicle tech, and I switched to military police soon after my training was done. I deployed to Afghanistan in 306. Everyone would probably know that tour for Op Medusa and Op Aztuka. And then I deployed in 309 where I got injured. In between those two tours, I did a course in Blackwater, which led me to work for a family in Barbados. That kind of led me down my first path to entrepreneurialism. So that family in Barbados, Eugene Melnick and his family, you might know him as the owner of the Sens or former owner of the Senators, and now his daughters are currently the current owners until potentially Ryan Reynolds takes over. But at the time, Eugene was worth $1.4 billion. So he was a great mentor to have to learn from. And a lot of people might say some things about him and how in terms he handled the Senators, but I did learn a lot from him. I started my first corporation, which was a security consulting company. And then that's basically what got me started in investing. So a lot of the things that I did after my Barbados time kind of brought me over to start Mad Hatter Industries. Can everybody hear me? I'm getting some feedback here.
Yeah, CD Pangolin has his mic on.
Yeah, if we can mute Pang, that'd be great. I could see if I could do it too. Let's see here. Participants, Pang. These still, I think we got that situation sorted out. Yeah, so that's basically what happened in between my first and second tours. I did a small private enterprise. They call it private military contracting. So that's what got me kind of the starter capital money that got me into investing. And I used that money basically after my injury to finish my university degree. And I was able to move over to energy production where I work now. So I started as a nuclear tactical officer, Ontario Power Generation. I worked up the ranks from a team leader on an armed nuclear tactical unit all the way to senior scientist, where I just left that position to work over in hydro. So now I'm back out in the country where I grew up, and really the focus is running my business full time. And I do work full time, and I'm still in the reserves. So I recently commissioned a few years ago. I can still nav, but I took on that commission and became an LT. And I'm a father of 3 children. Also, on top of running Mad Hatter Industries, I'm part owner of a brewery and basically a full-time investor. I have a few income properties and equities portfolio of about $300K. So that kind of helps offset the costs, because the business model for Mad Hatter Industries right now is about every dollar that comes in, there's $3 that gets spent. So there's $1 that goes back to the business, $1 to charity, and then $1 to expand. So we've made, I guess, over the last 3 years, we've been in operation about $80,000, which is pretty successful. But the majority of that does go to charity and to growing the business. And it's really been a passion of mine. It's helped me get over my fears and learn how to jump out of a perfectly good airplane, how to stunt ride a motorcycle. So you might see a lot of our lifestyle apparel is into those kind of niches. I like to say we're all about motorcycles, mental health, and machine guns. And for me, I started Mad Hatter Industries as a way to help others and myself. I really find it therapeutic getting out there, working with others. We just work with everyone in the community, including a lot of stunt riders who get injured and a lot of people that have gone the wrong path. We try and bring them off the path towards organized crime. So we do have a few ex-bikers we've helped rehabilitate and get on the path, get themselves working. And really it's, the apparel is kind of a secondary thing. That's my expression. A lot of the designs will have a message and a mission behind it, separate from our company, but also complementary. So it tells a story. And that's essentially why I'm here. I really respect Greg. I got to meet him at TACCOM, and I think we both have the same mission where we try to help others. And I know Greg's been highly successful, and it's inspiration. So for those of you that were listening yesterday, I think Dave Moore did an awesome job just talking about the veteran lifestyle, the passion. And Greg, as he teaches his story to you, I'm kind of here just to listen on the side and provide you advice. For me, I think the biggest, most important part is execution. When you have an idea, you just run with it. I get a lot of people that ask what my business plan was, and I didn't have one. I was actually selling t-shirts for $1 more than it was making them, which is a bad business plan. But I was super excited. I got out there, started selling a message, and then I don't know if any of you've heard of Tactical Beaver. I ended up trading him $500 plus a bottle of whiskey for his old silk screening rig, and he taught me how to make shirts. And from there, we now have a full production and operations team. We're based out of Toronto for operations. We're making shirts for Wounded Warriors Canada, Veterans and Everyday Heroes. So we don't just do our own shirts, we do other shirts. And we're in a few dealerships as well. So we're slowly expanding into Harley Davidson dealerships and tactical stores. And really, it's about spreading that passion and excitement into the industry and helping connect people, finding their passion and supporting other like-minded initiatives. So Walk for the Wounded, that's another charity that is an excellent charity. We helped them raise almost $100,000 this year. Warrior Adventures Canada, another really great charity that we support, as well as Wounded Warriors and Veterans and Everyday Heroes. So for me, the money is kind of secondary. We started off with a goal to make our apparel relevant, and we wanted to be badass. We wanted to make really good quality apparel. So I basically learned the role of every part of the business. I started as the operator technician, then I moved into the manager role, and we've since then started a group of ambassadors. We have about 7 full-time dedicated staff working with us, in addition to our operations production that comes out with us to events. But really, it was about spreading that passion, working with people that are excited to work with. And we have a couple company values that have really helped propel us. You know, we look to have fun, help other people first and foremost. We want to help others, and then we don't want any drama. We just go forth and help and execute. And in terms of business plan, it's kind of been developed along the way. I've learned a lot just by being in the industry, working with people I looked up to, and just asking them. I just basically would straight up contact them and ask them how they're doing it, what they're doing. And you probably, if you're on Instagram anyways, you go right back to the beginning of when we started and see a progression of how things have moved along. But I'd say for those that are interested and have an idea, you know, it's great to bounce it off others, but really it's important to follow your heart. Do something you really love and are truly passionate about, and just execute. You're going to find a lot of things on the way. In terms of seed money and starter money, I get a lot of questions about, you know, the BDC. I'm waiting to hear back from so they can link me up with a business plan and some financing. A lot of things you can just start on the background, working on your own. So I guess for me, what I have to offer is just a little bit of experience about what it's like building my business. I did it the hard way. I did it repeatedly the hard way. So really, if anybody thinks it's not for them and they can't do it, as long as you have a hard work ethic, you're not willing to give up, then I think if I could do it, you could definitely do it. And it certainly isn't easy. It's not for the faint of heart. Entrepreneurship is a grind, but it's rewarding. I find it a passion, and my goal is to do it full time. And every year, I think we get closer to that goal. We do pick up a lot more assets. And fortunately, with all the donations, we get to write a lot of stuff off. And with the full-time job I have, that's very beneficial for me to keep growing the company that way and then offset other investments. But not everybody has the same goal. Not everybody has the same allocations. So really, it's about walking your own walk, doing it at your own pace, as much as you're comfortable with. And, you know, but they say, like, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. Don't bite off more than you can chew. I find it's really beneficial to have a team. And I tried to do it all myself and realized quickly that it's easy to burn yourself out, especially when you got 3 kids and 2 other jobs. So building a team of those that support you. I love helping out others in the business. Corporal for life. I talk to them, I would say, weekly, if not monthly. And then others that used to be in the business as well, I still keep in touch with. Bushwookie, Arrowhead. These are all great brands and great people to reach out to and talk to. And really, it's about the veteran renaissance, which was indicated earlier by Dave, and this idea that Greg had about starting up this workshop. It's about helping others, raising each other up, because I'm a firm believer that a rising tide that's successfully rising lifts all boats. So the more we do to help each other, helps ourselves as well. So that's basically my story. And I guess for some analytics, I know Greg's a real data guy. From our first to second year, we grew about 1,189%. And this year we're tracking around 90% growth. So we have had a lot of success online. It was really tough. We started on probably the hardest time to start, right at the height of COVID. We went all out, got our first massive run of apparel. Boom, COVID hit. We got shut down for our first in-person event. Didn't stop us. We switched from a WooCommerce-based platform onto Shopify, and we learned how to engage, convert, and make people aware of our brand and start landing sales that way. We did a lot of health challenges based around fitness and mental health motivation goals. And from there, it just kind of grew. We started a connected community of like-minded individuals. And that's where our ambassador team grew. And some of them now are full-time employees. And essentially, I've had to take the hat of the technician off, give it to others. And as we grow, take on less tasks and kind of just directly focus on the strategic. And I think that'll probably come up in some of Greg's slides. But as you grow, it's the same hierarchy as it works with the military. So anyone that's had any rules is, from a private up to your first junior leadership course, all those basic fundamentals still apply. And if you can engage and destroy the enemy, you can certainly take that attitude towards business and find that success. So that's pretty much the big nutshell kind of story of where we're at and how we came to be and what we do. And I guess I'll just highlight a few key points of Greg and both Dave, who spoke yesterday. If you really want to succeed, then you can't quit. And it's a hustle. So you have to fall in love with the process. I love it. I love getting out, talking to people. I get really excited going to shows, seeing the stunt riders out there. To me, it's very similar to combat, seeing those guys survive. And some of them get a little bit busted up. If you look at one of our posts today, that's from one of the most talented and exciting riders. His name's Brad, but he had a rough season and he's still killing it. So I think, the idea is to really follow your passion, find a way to really live your adventure and make it work for you. So some of you might do it while you're still full-time employed. It might be as a business, you start to transition, or you're looking to do it full-time and go right in. Well, sometimes the best way to do that is if you're looking to start a coffee shop, work at a coffee shop for a bit, or if you have the money, go right into it and learn as you do. There's a lot of free resources out there. So for me, I think I get excited looking at new potential businesses out there, the faces of new entrepreneurs. And I can't stress enough the importance of networks, friendships, relationships you make as you go. I would say that's an unquantifiable asset and really a big benefit of being your own business and entrepreneur. The veteran entrepreneur, I think, is really a lot of kudos go off to them because it's countless hours. I would say I can't imagine how many hours I've devoted. It's essentially all of them, as much spare time as I can. And it's not really about time appreciation. It's about really following what you love. And it's got to be more motivation than just money. If it was just about money, then I'd be an index fund manager, where clients just give you your money regardless if you go up or down. And I really do love what I do. I love to help people. And that's why I'm here again, because out of the respect for Greg and, hopefully we can help some of you find your ikigai, what you really love to do, what you can do well, and sort of figure out what it is that people need. So producing something that works and is of value to others, I think is it's a great feeling at the end when you have people that love what they wear and they love the story behind it. For me, that's why we started Mad Hatter Industries. So that's my story. And I think we'll be talking tomorrow, Greg, about execution. Perfect.
Yeah,
So
no,
if you have,
thank you so much. And there's a lot of beautiful lessons in this story of yours. And considering the topic of today's mission, like throughout your entire presentation, you kept coming back to why you're doing this, who you're doing this for, and you really know your target audience. The veterans with mental health needs and motorcycle therapy. Actually very similar to fire moto because they're
Throttle therapy,
te-
it's one of their
yeah,
slogans.
the tagline exactly. Let me reclaim the host and
Yeah, and I'll
back.
just segue, Greg. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me online, privately, or in group here. I'll be monitoring the chat while Greg's going through the slides. And whenever I have time, I'm happy to chat.
Yeah, no, thank you. So, it was a great example of a mission-based company, Mad Hatter Industries, where, you're looking to eliminate veteran suicide. And that's a very lofty goal. So thank you for that. So once you establish your mission, I think, a good exercise to go through is a goal setting exercise. Because, even though we just heard how Corey is kind of like building an airplane, jumping off a cliff on the way down. I think this is a very valuable exercise to do because I've done this a couple of times and then I revisited it several years later. And a lot of things on that list actually happened, and I don't know if it's because I wrote them down or what, but I think it's still a very valuable thing because you may not hit all of the goals, but now your subconscious will kind of steer you towards that outcome. So this is going to be part of the homework, but essentially, the goal of the business is, of course, to accomplish the mission and help the people and serve the people that you want to serve. But at the end of the day, it has to be profitable, right? So like you cannot pour from an empty cup, even if your end game is to, let's say, donate a lot of money to charity. You need to first generate that money in order to be able to donate it. So a business still needs to be a profitable enterprise. And that's why it's very important for you to determine like what kind of income you want to make personally and also the business, because that will determine the type of business you're going to go in. Like, for example, if you only, if you want to make 6 figures versus 9 figures, it's going to be a very, very different type of business and will require different type of resources. So I think that will help you determine and see how it says why. Like, why do you want that amount and why is it important that you hit it on that day? So keep coming back to the why. Some personal life goals, because remember, it's not all about the business. Like obviously business is a big part of life, but you still want to have a quote unquote balanced life. And some people believe that business will consume you. Like maybe you will be like Elon Musk and that's all you do is just your business and you forego everything else. But you know what, it doesn't have to be this way. Like you still need to have health goals and relationship goals with your family and friends and the community. So it's very important that you don't let go of that. And the way you do it is by writing it down. So that's another important thing. So if you want to run an Ironman, or you want to, bench 300, or you want to, have 3 children and whatnot, like this is something that you probably need to put down and work towards that. So once you have your kind of like high level goals and your mission, and then those things will kind of steer you towards the decision of like what kind of business model you're going to pick. And this, like we discussed yesterday, there's multiple models. I'm familiar with 3 or 4 of them, but it doesn't have to be that way. It could be any combination of things. But a lot of those decisions made earlier, like, who you're serving, why you're serving them, what kind of money you want to make, will drive those decisions. So like, if let's say you just want it to be a lifestyle hobby business that complements your full-time job, and you only want to work on it, 5 hours a week, that's going to be very different from going all in and becoming like a global company serving, millions of people around the world. Some other business model factors. Again, is location independence important to you? Do you want to serve your local community, or like, for example, for me, it's very important to be location independent because of my affinity to travel and experience in different cultures. And for somebody else, they want to be embedded in their community and like improve everything around them. Like, it's very important to them. So do you work better in a team or a solo? Like, I mean, obviously, coming from the military, we should all be comfortable working in a team. However, for certain people, they just want to be, for example, a solo consultant or maybe a coach. They want to work one-on-one and they don't want to scale. Or some people prefer to build a huge team in order to accomplish their mission. What size business do you want, both like in terms of headcount and in terms of the revenue? And then some of the homework also asks you questions. What are you good at? What do you like? You got to start thinking about that. It will determine your business model. Like, are you good working one-on-one with people, or are you okay with systems, setting things up? And then what skills must you acquire and who you must become? Because that's very important, because now you're adopting this new identity of entrepreneur, and you have to shed your old identity of, a soldier, a sailor, or an aviator or whatnot. And that means, you have to acquire certain skills. You have to have your inventory of skills done, and just, this is not an all-inclusive list by all means, but some of the things, for example, in the marketing industry, or you need to be good with advertising and writing sales copy, and probably some video and graphics, so at least be familiar with it. There's a lot of skills. You don't have to be proficient on all of them, but I think whatever the skills inventory is needed for your business model, you need to know enough to be dangerous. What I mean by that is you need to be familiar with whatever you're going to delegate, because there's going to be a lot of players who's going to try to pull wool over your eyes. And because, for example, I used to build websites myself. Like, if somebody comes to me and says it's going to take 3 weeks to build this basic landing page, I'm like, I can do it in like 3 hours. So why do you gonna take 3 weeks to build it? Like, having at least a basic level of familiarity with a skill is going to go a long way. But you don't have to be proficient at all of them, because some people get overwhelmed by it and they never move, because they're like, oh my God, how am I going to learn all of this? No, the real answer is you don't. You need to determine which of these skills you are already good at, or you can learn relatively quickly, versus what you can outsource, hire out, delegate, or partner up. All right. Some good comments in the chat there. Okay. I mentioned who do you have to become. It's adopting like a new identity of entrepreneur. Essentially, it's going to come down to 3 things. So remember your why. You got to be obsessed over your who and over your mission, because again, if the going gets tough, you will want to quit. And of course, we can say, I never quit because I'm strong, but I think it's the why and the who that will actually keep you going. And your own internal discipline may not be strong enough to actually let you not quit. But for example, me doing this challenge, like, I know who my who is. I know that I need to be present here to serve you guys. And that means, like, I cannot fail. I cannot quit. Like, I need to go out of my way to make it happen, make sure it goes exactly as planned. And then you have to master your what, because at the end of the day, you have to be able to deliver results for people. And that usually means you have to be in a constant state of learning and never stop improving. So like, for instance, I mentioned books, audiobooks. Like a few years ago, I stopped listening to music in my car, and now I only listen to podcasts and audiobooks. Same thing when I work out. Like I don't listen to pump up music. I listen to podcasts and audiobooks to become better, to have that information, to deliver better results for my clients and for my teams and whatnot. Again, if you think back to the unifying definition of a mission, it's a single unifying focus for all subordinate elements. There's this famous story about Warren Buffett and Bill Gates. They had a dinner and somebody asked them, like, what is the secret to success? And they had to write it on a piece of paper, and then they would, like, on the count of 3, flip it over. And when they flipped it over, the paper said focus, right? What that means is that you will need to learn to say no often. That's something that I'm kind of still learning. I'm still pretty bad, but here's 2 gentlemen, both military veterans. Glenn is he heads up the 1-9 fund that we mentioned yesterday. And then Corey Schaffer is from the US. He has the Till Valhalla project. So, we were just discussing something, and look, they're okay with say no. I have to focus on the mission. It's not a priority for me. And that's okay. And people will understand. So this is what a mission does. This is what being focused on your goal does. This is exactly what these gentlemen are able to do, is to say no, because they need to be focused on their mission that they chose. That's why it's also, I think it's important to pick one. So this is it. A lot shorter than yesterday. I want to give everyone time to actually work on their homework, because I think this is important. Like maybe, spend the next 30 to 60 minutes thinking about the why and the who, and there's going to be specific exercises at the end of the slides. But essentially, I'm going to share it in the comments, and I'm going to email it out. But yeah, this is it. I felt like it was an important lesson to drive home before going into the tactics and, kind of like execution, because that's what we do in the op order. Like we want to make sure that everybody understands the intent and everybody knows the mission before we say, pens down, eyes up, this is how we're going to do it. So once again, thanks to Corey for sharing his story and his mission. And now it's time for Q&A. Once again, you can drop the questions in the chat or Facebook comments for those who are joining us on Facebook. Or if you're on Zoom, just raise your hand or unmute yourself, and let's discuss.
Okay, I'll hop in here. Corey, yes, you're right. Execution is key. 100%. Ideas are shit. Execution is what gets you going. Think, who do I have to become? If I want to drive that amazing car or take those amazing trips, if I want to afford it, who do I have to become? Mission statement, we've all heard it as privates, corporals, troopers, sergeants, whatever. It's a mission statement. It gives you a path. It shows you where you need to go, what you want to do, everything. And one of the biggest, hardest lessons that I learned when I first started was the ability to say no. When you're starting, you're scraping, you're trying to please everybody. You're trying to take in as much revenue as possible. And eventually, it might work for the first little bit, but eventually it will hurt you. Learn to say no. Here's my scope. This is what I do. This is what I'm good at, and stick to it. And then later on, if you have to, once you get the support around you, if you have to pivot, that's great, but learn to say no. I can't do it. It's got me out of trouble just as much as it's gotten me into trouble in the past not saying it. So yeah, good luck, guys.
Yeah, no, very wise words. And again, sometimes it's hard to turn away, dollars being shoved in your face. But the PCC client, Paulson and credit card. But you also, like I alluded earlier, when you become the number one specialist in your niche, you can say like, this is all I do. Like, I'm sure everybody heard the joke about this. Whatever, some piece of machinery at a plant that became broken, and they called this guy in, and he looks at it and he says, bring me a hammer, and then he hits it once with a hammer and says $10,000. And the plant owner says, what, $10,000 for 1 minute? He's like, no, it took me 20 years to know where to hit once with a hammer so I can fix it, so you owe me for 20 years, not for 1 minute. That kind of is another way of story-based lesson here about being a specialist. That's how you can make $10,000 a minute. Okay, some questions in the chat. When do we get business plans? BDC was useless. They won't lend you money if you don't have any, and their business plan was a YouTube video. Okay, that's an interesting question, because I did bring up the goal setting and the planning process, but that's mostly for you. This is kind of like your roadmap, so you have at least some North Star where you're operating. As far as having a formal business plan, just because I always bootstrapped, I always just used internally generated funds. I never had to raise money. I never had a formal business plan written, and my business plan was go. Well, almost like that, but you do some back of the envelope calculations, and we're gonna go through a little bit of that tomorrow. I want to make $1 million. What do I need to do in order to make the $1 million? As far as having a business plan document to bring to a bank to give me money, again, I didn't do it, but a person from my unit, he actually used this MESC format, the orders format. He actually had situation, mission, execution, service support, command and signals format. And he that was his business plan. And he went to the bank, and the bank gave him money because it was clear, it was concise. Obviously, he downloaded the information from his head onto paper in that simple format that he knew because he was a sergeant in the infantry. And the bank looked at it. Okay, yeah, you have your mission. This is how you're going to do it. This is the stuff that you're going to, purchase with the money that you're asking. This is your team. We believe in your team. Boom. That's it. Anybody else has any experience with business plans and raising money? Because if it's just a business plan for yourself, and you're going to hire a fancy consultant to write it for you, and you cannot proceed before you write that plan, I think that could sometimes be a mistake. That's just me.
Yeah, I got a little bit of experience both with the business plan and the BDC, and that'd be in the brewery that I'm invested in. It took years to get off the ground, over 5 years before we actually started serving under our own power. And a lot of that was due to the paperwork required by the BDC. Despite having agreements and the secured loans in place, there'd be a lot of last minute requests that would wait and delay our securing of finance, which was critical, on top of having to deal with the issues with the pandemic. And prior to that, the administrative bureaucracy for just the most insane bureaucracy for things dealing with water wastage and all these zoning things. So it can get quite expensive. I'd say, for something like that, that's as intensive as growing up a business that's going to be quite labor and capital intensive. It's a good idea to take your time, and the business plan did help. But together there were 7 investors, and we raised over $1 million, just over $1 million, and it dried up pretty quickly. So we've been working on perfecting the best beer. There's been a lot of awards won, but the road to profitability can be tough, and there's a lot of paperwork, a lot of grinding on its way through. And fortunately, that's a business I'm not directly involved in. I would be pulling my hair out. I don't necessarily love, other than brewing and canning the beer, I don't love the paperwork side of things. And same for my business. I have a really great accountant. It's about finding those professionals that are at a reasonable rate that you can work with and trust, finding them to help you along your way. It really helps alleviate some concern.
Hey, Corey, just out of curiosity, how long did it take you to build or put your business plan on paper? And how long after you finished it was it still relevant?
It definitely isn't relevant now. And I'd say, honestly, the business plan was just to get the initial securing and interest from the investors. The business plan you can throw out the window. Like, it's write it as you go. I call it building an airplane while falling to the ground, but really you learn as you go and you're going to adapt that plan. It's good to have a framework, but again, we go back to the execution side of things. Like, you can have the best plan in place, just like in war. All hell breaks loose, or you get punched in the face, or something happens, it's a curveball, you got to roll the punches and adapt. Like, it's about the execution side of things and learning how to adapt on the fly. And as Greg said, perhaps there might be a pivot involved. And the more that I work the business, the more I realize we're not necessarily an apparel business. It's the idea of helping others really that we sell. So that's really, I've been working with a mentor actually from Princess Trust Operations. So there's been a lot of interesting insights recently, but I love the artwork. I used to skateboard, so we're always going to have that design capability aspect, and that'll be really, that's where we have our artistic expression and our flow. But yeah, it all comes from helping others. And you find as you adapt and you go through that the roles you previously loved may not be something that you're suited for anymore. Like, I'm not the technician. As much as I love making shirts, I still do it. But for bulk orders, we have our team handle orders over 300. So I still get involved every now and then, but I'm not the best. We have experts at it that are really good at what they do. And you can tell by the quality if you look at the Op Pegasus shirts or some Wounded Warriors shirts, or even VA that and our stuff as well. But that's what it's about. And it's finding the right people for the right fit. It's also good to have a rough understanding of everything as well as you go through, but really you can't do it all.
Yeah, no, that's some great discussions. And I think, who was it? Rommel said no plan survives first contact with the enemy. Mike Tyson says everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. Obviously, in the op order, we usually have different COAs, or actions on. So like, if this happens, we do this. So that's a mitigating factor. Once you have experience in business, or you have mentors or advisors, they will be able to give you those COAs and actions on what if this happens and in your plan, you will do this. But yeah, you also don't want to what if okay, question from Neil, Princess Trust. Okay, so very quickly, Princess Trust is a nonprofit. I think they're a Commonwealth-based organization. There's a Princess Trust Canada. It's a nonprofit organization, and one of the things that they do is business mentorship. They set you up one-on-one. I'm a mentor on the platform, and I've done 2 engagements so far. They just switched platforms. Before it was literally you had a coordinator matchmaking people together. So all of the mentees, they are veterans. The mentors are not all veterans. It's not a requirement. But usually it's somebody who's a couple of steps ahead of the mentee. So it's free, but it's a one-on-one thing, and you need to be paired up. So I don't know what it looks like on the mentee side. I asked for a mentor for myself, somebody who maybe has done 8-9 figures and is a few years ahead of me. So far they haven't set me up, so it is available. And I think they used to do these types of workshops in person before COVID. I don't think they've done one ever since. I think Dave mentioned yesterday he did one 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, they've gone digital now. Their new program is a digital platform that they're using an app. They're trialing it right now. I'm actually on it, so I should probably re-download the app.
Yeah,
but,
I'm on the app, but there's nothing going on. They rolled
good.
it out a month ago, and I'm
anything.
What's going on? But anyways, yeah, it is a resource that is available. And like I said, there are probably a few others. When I did my research before this, there's a few other organizations that kind of do similar. I think there's somebody in out west, they do the boot camps in person. Well, at least they did before COVID. And there's, I think, one more nonprofit that's a registered charity that has a business boot camp for veterans. But a lot of them have these like cohorts where like you have to apply, and then if you miss the boat, you have to wait until the next one. You know, there are resources, and my vision for this is, as we were chatting with Bill earlier today on Instagram, is why not make it into something like Bunker Labs in the US. They have no plans of expanding to Canada. I already asked, so we can do our own and have you know, this online community where we have the group, and you know, we can have a higher level mastermind for, you know, people who are like really serious and seriously involved into it, and maybe an annual live event, because like I love live events. And Dave just came back from Military Influencer in the US. He's all pumped up, and I know how powerful and how life-changing these events can be. And you know, maybe we can then have a accelerator or an incubator type for you know, startups, something like what 19 is doing for the defense sector, or like Bunker Labs is essentially an accelerator for veteran startups in the US. So you have advisory boards, you can access to capital, access to different resources. So like all of that infrastructure can be built if, you know, we act as a community and we do this together, and we have more and more people coming in. Then we can set it all up. Yeah, so another thing is about, you know, finding help. So in Nicholas's example, it's beautiful. Like, he wasn't sure what he was doing. He was doing apparel, that much he knew. So who's the top dog in veteran apparel? Well, it was Grunt Style at the time. So you've literally cold called them, and because there was that rapport, he got, you know, some coaching and mentoring out of them, who essentially are like almost his competitors. So that's another thing. Like a lot of veterans are kind of like shy or reserved, or they don't want to reach out, or they're even when they reach out, they're like awkward about it. So, you know, it's very easy. Like, everyone's super approachable usually most of the time, especially if you kind of like establish a rapport that, you know, you also served, even if it's a different military. Like when I went to the US in 2018, I was the only Canadian, and everybody was like a fucking tier 1 operator. It was like SEALs, Green Berets, Recon Marines, and they're like, here I am, like a Canadian reservist, and they're like, brother, you know, full on, like shaking hands with Jocko Willink and everything, like mind blowing for me. So how approachable everybody is. So don't be shy. Reach out, find somebody who has done what you want to do in your industry. Like if you're in apparel industry, maybe find an apparel company. If you are in, you know, coffee, find you know, a successful coffee roaster. If you're in pets, then find somebody in pets and then ask them, you know, nicely, politely. You know, it's a bit of a skill, but because a lot of people who have found success, they have this innate desire to give back, and if they see you as themselves 5 or 10 years ago, they will be like really repelled to help you. That's my experience. Reach out and ask, says Bill, and if they say no, move to the next. But bring value. Yeah, that's nothing. Like, be prepared to just not just ask, but also give. Like, figure out how you can be useful or provide some sort of value. Some other, yes, it's some good discussion. So, and again, this community, like, if it becomes more active than it is right now it's just mostly me talking and posting, but like, you know, we have 450 people in the group. Some of them are confirmed, you know, 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs. I know because I personally invited them. Just like pop questions on the group, comment on each other's questions, share your lessons. Like, oh no, this week I learned this week I had this win, this week I had this punch in the face, this is what I learned. Like, just share it, like spend, you know, 15 minutes, and eventually we're going to get it going. to where like maybe we don't need Princess Trust, maybe we don't need like bunker loans. We have 500 people in the group. Like, come on, vast experience, I'm sure. All right, so we're moving on about 20 minutes here in Q&A. Anybody else has any comments or questions or anything? If not, the homework I prepared. So basically, I'm going to post a link to Simon Sinek's worksheet. Start with why for veterans. I did his workshop a year ago. It was especially for veterans. I don't think he runs it anymore, but it's $40 well spent. I saved the worksheet and like I want to reuse it, so I'm gonna hopefully it's okay that I share it with you, but it's a good exercise to go through. And then yeah, define your who, because now you're gonna have your why, you're gonna define your who, and then in one sentence write down a problem that you would like to solve for them, and then do the goal setting exercise from today, like business goals and life goals. And that's it. So again, the best is to go live on the group and just like on video report back your homework. Second best is type it out or do whatever, but whoever submits the best homework will win another prize. I guess some last minute questions in the chat. How would you recommend scaling from a small local business to a multi-city operation? What resources would you seek to assist with growth? Okay, so I guess the question is probably for a physical location business, I would imagine. We kind of had this with my last Princess Trust engagement. We had a physical smoothie shop in a small town in New Brunswick, and basically the owner was hitting the ceiling of like in a town of 2,000 people. So she wanted to figure out ways to establish a foothold in a larger city. I mean, I suggested doing like a test run, like kind of like pop-ups first, like maybe go to the farmer's market, go to find some underutilized space, like maybe somebody who has some unused space that you can, without making a big commitment, you can test drive. So an example from the fitness industry, like when one boot camp company, and now they're valued $500 million, was starting out. They didn't have their own facility, so they partnered with gymnastics gyms, because those were usually operating in the evenings for the kids. All the mornings were underutilized, so they just made a deal without signing a 5-year lease of using those facilities in the morning for their fitness clients. And that's how they were able to test the waters in a different location. So that's kind of like my suggestion, is to figure out some sort of partnership in the location that you want to go to and see if you can establish a win-win. Moving services. Okay. Yeah, as far as like we had a moving client in the agency, as far as I know, they basically just have a brand that generates leads, but then they subcontract it to individual operators. So maybe if I understand the back end of the business correctly in the moving services, you just need to find local partners, like independents in that city, and just persuade them to work with you, because you're able to generate the business, generate the leads. Like if you have a strong brand, or you have a good way of attracting those moving leads, maybe you're really good with advertising, or maybe that's basically you partner up with local independents and you move. Franchising is another option. Again, I'm not an expert on franchising, but for that you're going to need to have your SOPs and everything that is ready to sell in the box, kind of like McDonald's. So that's another way of scaling to different geographical locations. So I hope that answers the question somewhat. Okay. Well, I guess that's it for questions. Thank you guys for joining. Again, great turnout today, and some great discussion, great contribution from the guests and speakers. So I'm going to give you some extra time tonight, finish earlier to do the homework, ideally from yesterday and today. Just get your brain going in the right direction. And we'll see you tomorrow at the same time. Tomorrow is going to be a little bit more content heavy. We're going to go into execution, and how to actually get it going. So thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow.